When Robert Saleh was fired last week, Ulbrich took over as the Jets' interim coach after more than 3 seasons working as their defensive coordinator. His head coaching debut comes at home against the division rival Buffalo in prime time. Michael, what is your advice for Ulbrich in this spot?
Well, I think for Jeff, what you have to do is just focus on being the best defensive coordinator you can be, understand game situations, and interject your personality into the offense, which is, I think, something that most head coaches don't do. You know, you've got an infectious personality. You've got an upbeat. The players seem to like you. You hold players accountable. You just can't coach the defense. You got to coach everybody. But you got to call the defense during this game. So when the offense is out there, you got to let your assistants handle the adjustments, but you also got to be involved, and you've got to demand from the players that they play to a certain level. This is all about style, how the game is going to go. How do you want to handle the game? Who's going to help you on replays? Who's going to help you on situational football? I think that's really important, and having never done this before, it can be overwhelming. So to me, you just got to focus on what you're really good at, which is calling defense and rely on help from others. But once you get the flow of the game, then you've got to make decisions based on the flow of the game, not what other people think, because you're controlling the defense. You know if you can get stops or not. You know if you can control the pace of the game, and if you can gain control, forget the score. So to me, this is a big job, but it's certainly one because of your defensive background you can handle.
There's nothing wrong with Dak Prescott's checkbook after signing a record-breaking 4-year, $240 million contract before the Cowboys' first game this season. There are some things wrong with his team's performance. They were embarrassed yesterday, point-blank period, going against the Detroit Lions. He threw 2 interceptions and threw 0 touchdowns. 47-9 blowout. As Dak Prescott enters your office, Michael, what would you tell him and his team?
Well, I would tell him that, look, we've got to find a way to get a balanced attack. You know, we're putting way too much pressure on trying to throw the ball. But more importantly, I think we really need to sit down and figure out on this bye week, what are we doing in the red zone? What mistakes are we making? The interception was strictly on you. You know, you had a high-low read on the outside. You never really looked at the low read. You made Brian Branch never had to react to it, and he could break on and intercept the ball. It was too easy. It was a high school interception. And that was on you because you didn't do a good enough job of being able to read what they were doing and react to what they were doing. So you've got to be better in the red zone. You've got to be more demanding in the red zone. You've got to be able to lift the team up in the red zone. And then one of the things we do know about why teams struggle in the red zone is because they can't run the football. It's hard, as Brady was saying on the broadcast yesterday, it's hard to throw the ball down in the red area when you have all those bodies. You got, 21 other guys floating around and you can't see. The windows are really tight. It's challenging. And when you can't run it, the problems increase. So to me, I think this is really important that you spend most of your day on your bye week is trying to get with McCarthy, trying to figure out what you guys can do better. You're going to move the football to the red zone. But the problem is you're keeping teams alive with your inability to score 7 and only getting 3.
Next into your office after making his NFL rookie debut in a loss to the Texans, 41-21. He's the new starting quarterback after the Patriots started the season 1-4. He threw 2 interceptions and was sacked 4 times, but also had 3 passing touchdowns and 243 passing yards. Both were season highs for Patriots quarterbacks. Michael, how does Maye approach the rest of the season?
Well, it's going to get harder and harder and harder because once people see what you're capable of doing, they're going to start defending you. So you have to look at every one of your tapes, not from a standpoint of what you did well, is what causes you problems because you're going to start to get more of that. And let's not get carried away. Study the first half more than study the second half. You made some really good throws, and I think you showed promise and you showed the talent worthy of being the 3rd pick overall in the draft. I was impressed with your ability to anticipate, your ability to throw the football and be accurate on the 3rd level. Those are things that won't go away. But you're going to have to do a better job of protecting the football. You carry the future of the franchise with you when you go under center. You've got to protect the football. You've got to do a good job of understanding, and you've got to learn from it. You're going to grow from every one of these games. You only started 30 games in college. This is your 31st start, and you're going to build off of it. But to me, it's a promising start, but, man, you got a long way to go. And if you think you're there and the media is going to be praising you all week, telling you how good you look, You know it was against junk yards, right? You know they weren't even trying as hard as they wanted to try, and they saved all their blitzes because they didn't want to use them on tape against a team that they didn't really need them for when they blitz, right? When other teams are up by this much, half their game plan gets put back in their pocketbook. They're not going to use it. I think that happened to you, and that allowed you to have so much success. Build on it.
Losing 10 of his last 11 starts, Trevor Lawrence now enters Michael Lombardi's office, and his Jaguars fell yet again this past weekend against the Chicago Bears in London. They lost that game 35-13. What's even more concerning for Trevor Lawrence and company is that the head coach, Doug Peterson, said after the game that the team needs a culture change. What does Lawrence need to change? What does Lawrence need to do to change the culture in Jacksonville?
I don't think Trevor Lawrence, you can change the culture. All you can do is work hard. I mean, the guy who's responsible for the culture, the guy who is being paid to establish and create the culture that is a winning culture is one man and one man only, and his name is Doug Peterson, who's complaining about the culture. If he's complaining about the culture, this is what he installed. So he has nobody to look at except for him in the mirror. And then he's got to hold players accountable. When you hear a player or a coach say there's a lack of culture, really what they're saying is there's a lack of accountability, right? That's what they're saying. Because if you have culture, you have accountability. Those things go hand in hand. You understand that. But when you don't have accountability, when people aren't responsible for their actions, where everybody's not all in, where everybody is not aligned, forget about being on the same page. Being on the same page is meaningless. We're seeing that in Jacksonville. You know, you're on the same page, great. But as soon as you lose, that page gets torn up. So for me, this is more about how do we get Doug to start holding people accountable? And then I think you got to ask Doug, why are we so good on the first drive of the game where we can game plan it, but the second and third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth drive of the game, we're not worth a darn? I think that's a fair question to ask. But look, it starts with accountability, right? That's the number one thing. All these teams, they want to talk about it, but unless you have accountability, unless you're holding players to a standard of excellence that obviously they haven't installed in them, I mean, it's just not going to work. And so we've got to find a way to do that. And we got to find a way to, we can't go 14 plays on the first drive and then the next 3 drives all end up in punt and we wonder why we're out of the game.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at zero cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.